Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of our Raw Reaction series show in which we look back at the latest Arsenal fixture with the help of some fantastic guests this evening. I hope you're doing good and well. Of course, we're looking back at yesterday's game against Oxford United. I'm joined by three brilliant guests tonight, which I'll be introducing you to shortly. Just very quickly, good evening to everyone joining us in the chat box. Harvey and Rich, we've got Gooner Jake, we've got Koon in the chat box as well, Kavya. I know I did put 0-0 for some reason. It felt like it was going to be 0-0 forever, and I've changed that now. But thank you for the heads up on that. Tom, good evening to you. To Temi, who's probably got the most stereotypical comment in the January window of "We're not signing anyone, are we?" Well, we'll talk about transfers a little bit later on. Let's introduce to you my guests. First off, he joined me in the press box last night. It's Harry Simi. How you doing, mate? You good? You well?
Yeah, good, mate. Not too bad, thanks. Multitasking at its finest.
Indeed, yeah. It was just telling us off air how you're cooking and podding at the same time. It's impressive.
Yeah, can I do this? Look,
yeah, sure. Go for it.
There you go. Look at that. Look at that.
For the benefit of those listening on audio only, Harry's just panned his camera literally to his kitchen stove where he's stirring the. I'm surprised it's not kebabs tonight, mate. That's all you seem to cook on your Twitter page these days.
Yeah, do you know what? I've been struggling to motivate myself at the start of this year to get back outside. The rain is coming down hard. Got shelter, but I don't know. It doesn't feel right at the moment, which is unusual for me. Maybe I've lost my mojo. I don't know.
Maybe you just need to do a couple and you get straight back into it. But, warmer weather coming soon, I'm sure, to help give you a bit of a boost in that regard. But yes, it was, and I should say, we said it off air. You were taking the mick last night about me using a mouse with my laptop in the press. But why is this such a problem? Like, why did you pick out on this?
It's not a problem. I just find
you're going to get sabotaged next time I see you. You're going to nick it.
I just find it really funny that, like, when you go to a press box, like, it's always a fight for space on the desks. When you got a laptop, it's bad enough. Like, I find it a nightmare when I'm doing radio. I've got the ISDN box and the laptop, and most of the time you only get enough space for one or the other, and you kind of have to choose or put one on your lap or get creative and inventive. And I just found it hilarious that when I looked down in front of me, into the row in front of me, there was Tom with his mouse like all stretched out, and he had plenty of space. And
be fair, I had a spare seat next to me. It was me, a space, and then Art de Rocher from the Athletic to the right of me, and we had loads of room. So yeah, it was. I love a mouse. I'm using it right now. It's right here. So it's never done me wrong. This, although I was looking at new ones the other day to see if I can get like a more ones that fit like really nicely in your hands, like those types of mouses. So there you go. Has to be wide as well. Wireless lets you down. I can't deal with that. Can't deal with it. Anyway, I feel like we've kept our other guests waiting a long time while we chat about food and mouses. Let's introduce you our next guest, making an appearance once again. It's Abby. How you doing, Abby? You good? You well?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, Tom. How are you?
Very good. Very good. How was your New Year's? Was it nice?
Yeah, it was always all right. I was a bit poorly. I had that dreaded lurgy that was going around. So, but I tried to self-medicate. I did with some Prosecco and then some more Prosecco and then a little bit more, because obviously that was making me feel better. So I got through it in the end. But I've just got back off my Ollivobs actually today, nice. Been away with the wife and enjoyed one of our wedding presents. Yeah, which was a weekend away in the cabin.
I didn't mean to say.
Thank you. Yeah, and to you.
Yeah. Yes, of course. 2022 was full of podcasting weddings. I see a lot of people get married on social media this year. Maybe a man. Oh, sorry, Harry, go on.
Can I just say, as someone who's been married for a little while, you lot don't know what you're letting yourselves in for. Yeah, enjoy it now. Enjoy the honeymoon period.
Maybe it's just your own experience. Maybe ours will be better.
My whole life with my missus is one great big honeymoon. And she's watching.
There you go. Yeah, you're going to stay in the good books. Daniel's asking, do you use a mouse with your laptop if you're even using one?
No, it's the 21st century, guys. I don't do that. I've moved on from mice. I just, I use touchscreen now anyway.
In favour of the touchpads these days, or rather touchscreen in the case of the iPads and iPhones as well. A man who's not yet married, but maybe one day will be, and good friend of the Arsenal way, it's Chris Davison. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Yeah, good evening, Tom. Good evening, Harry, and to you, Abby, as well. Not married at the moment. Not sure that's entirely a road I want to go down after listening to Harry just then.
I'm really glad you ended that sentence.
The girlfriend's not watching. and obviously I know Abby's in a different situation. The girlfriend's not watching, so I'm safe. But no, pleasure to be on here finally, Tom. I know you've been trying to get me on for a while, and for whatever reason, there's been other stuff happening. I just haven't found the time and the opportunity to come on. So no, pleasure, mate. Thank you for having me.
No, it's good to see your face again. After, of course, for those that are long-time watchers of the Arsenal way, you'll know Chris, and from our 10 a.m. shows that we do. But it's just me chilling on the Arsenal way these days. It's an interesting scenario that we've got going there. But it's great to have you back on a channel as well, Chris. So it's good to hear you, and I'm sure we're going to get plenty of your thoughts as well as the rest of the guys on yesterday's game. This being the Raw Reaction show, Harry, can I get your Raw reactions from yesterday's win?
Glad that we're through. Obviously, feel like a little bit of a dampener was put on it before we even got to Oxford because of the fact that the next round sees us go to Manchester City, which is not ideal. You with the FA Cup, we've got this love affair with it, haven't we, as a club, and you want to see us go as far as we possibly can. But of course, we've got to be realistic, and we've got to understand that the squad is not really deep enough to compete on enough fronts in order for us to make that as a priority. I keep saying to people when they ask me about the FA Cup, it is something that I personally love, but obviously it's probably third in Arsenal's priority list at the start of the campaign because ultimately it doesn't give you a route back into the Champions League, which is where we want to go. The Europa League offers that if you win it. The Premier League obviously does if you finish in the top four. So I'm obviously glad that we're through, but I think for me it was more about having a look at some of those players that are on the fringes and are on the peripheries of sides. And I've been thinking a lot about this ever since sort of leaving the game yesterday. Driving back, I was with a mate of mine that grabbed the lift with me, and we were talking about it on the way home. And it was like, I don't really know how to judge some of these players right now because I look at them in a very disjointed and poor Arsenal side. I mean, you look at how Nketiah has performed in the Europa League, for example, and in the one Carabao Cup game that we played. Compare that to him when he plays in the Premier League with Saka, Martinelli and Odegaard and Xhaka and Partey all in and around him. So what I'm struggling with at the moment is to be able to differentiate when judging these players, what's down to them and what's down to there being a really poor team around them. Because if you look at Fabio Vieira, I'd have said he was quite poor yesterday up until Xhaka and Zinchenko come on. And then it changes because all of a sudden we're breaking lines with our passes. We're getting through the midfield. We're getting ourselves in on their back line, and we then isolate people, and that creates everything. He put in a good delivery for the free kick, obviously, which we don't win if we don't make those changes and get a little bit more progressive in our passing. And then obviously he plays that wonderful through ball for Eddie Nketiah, which is perfect. So watching that unfold, watching him be very average and then all of a sudden spark into life has got me really asking myself now, how much of it is down to those players as individuals and their actual talent, and how much of it is down to the general collective. And the same, I think, can be said for Lokonga, although I'm a little bit less convinced about him. He's kind of more to the other side of the scale for me. I'm not really willing to give him as much time as I'll give Fabio Vieira because we've had him for a while. But that's my big takeaway from the game. I think we really need to dig deep into these players and try and figure out whether they're good enough in the right environment or if they're just not good enough, full stop. And it's really difficult to tell at the moment because when he makes wholesale changes, the drop off in certain areas especially is huge.
Yeah, it is massive, and we saw that last night. It was so obvious. I remember turning around to you and just being like, this is awful. This is really bad in the first half. And thankfully it got better, but it did require the changes for that to happen. Abby, your raw reactions from yesterday's progression through to the fourth round?
Well, I mean, there was a lot of changes yesterday, and listen, there is no excuse. I spent the first 45 minutes defending everybody on that pitch, and in reflection, I know these are experienced and accomplished players, and I do believe they should be playing. They should be stepping up the game, and it should be a hell of a lot better cohesively. And I do believe that Arteta. I can't even imagine what he's going to say to them in half time in that match, because they did come out a better side, and albeit we had to make a couple of changes, and that really frustrates me that we do have to bring on a couple of players from our first team in order to get the goal, because I wasn't seeing where we was going to get anything in the match until we actually made those changes. And, it's telling when the missus, is turning around as soon as the game kicks off, going, "Where's Xhaka? Where's Zidane? Get them on! Get them on with Odegaard!" And I thought we was really poor. I thought Tierney and Tomiyasu actually. I was really surprised at how poor they were because they have a lot more experience in that first team. We use them as subs quite a bit, and it wasn't quite there. It wasn't quite clicking. And I thought Lokonga, I didn't even realise he was playing. And I'm a positive. I'm a very positive person, and I won't slate anybody. But what I will say is I didn't realise he was there, unfortunately, until I was watching the highlights before I came on here, actually. And the highlights start with his shot on goal where it hits the other guy's arm. And I was like, well, that says a lot about what we brought to the game. However, I'm not going to, let's not sell Oxford too short. I thought they came at us. And I think the All or Nothing documentary, as good as it is, what it does, it puts last year's game against Forest out there into the world forever, for us always to remember how bad we were this time last year. And maybe there was a bit of nerves, and maybe that was playing on there because there was a lot of players last night played last year in that game, and they were worse last year.
I remember Lokonga played that game as well and was pretty poor in that game also. Then, two things from that, the All or Nothing thing, firstly, watching that game back, that's the game that Arteta really lost his head. He completely lost his head in the dressing room and slamming the kit bag down onto the floor, with a young team, a really changed sides. And it was just a performance that we didn't expect to see. There was a lot of, it was obviously the game we saw Tavares hauled off in the first 30 minutes or so from the game. And it was almost like Arteta might have even been tempted to do the same thing in this game. I mean, Harry, there was a moment, I don't know if you picked up on it, well, Arteta was really getting agitated on the touchline with, I think, Albert Stuvenberg and a couple of I think Jonas is not Jonas. It is Jonas, the free kick coach. What's his name?
Jova, Nicholas
Jova. Sorry, Jonas.
Or was that the previous one? I get confused between.
No, he is Nicholas Jova. Yeah, he's the free kick guy. He was losing his head with them, like going up to them. He was really getting up close to Albert, and they were kind of discussing about what they wanted because they weren't happy with what was going on the field. And I think that there was maybe some of that Nottingham Forest from last year creeping in, the frustration into this game. So, and the other one being Lokonga. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about him later. But again, another FA Cup third round tie against a lower league opposition at the time. Of course, Nottingham Forest were then, where he's just not come up. Chris, lastly, your raw reactions to yesterday's win.
Yeah, well, obviously, as yourself and Harry and Abby have already touched on, not good enough in the first 45, no one near our best. I thought we were slow, sloppy, not creating enough going forwards. I think for the most part, we looked sort of assured at the back. Obviously, Oxford came forward a few times and tried to create something, but I thought we dealt with it quite well. Actually, a name we haven't mentioned, albeit I know he didn't have too much to do, but I thought Matt Turner looks much more comfortable now. Obviously, we know he struggled in pre-season and sort of had a few shaky moments in the Europa League earlier on in the season. But I think the work he's done on the training ground, and obviously the work he's doing with the goalkeeper coaches at the club, it's obviously going a long way. And he's looking much more comfortable now. So that was quite nice to see. But I mean, in terms of the rest of the performance in that first half, like I say, not good enough. Again, Saka, I thought, struggled at times. And we're talking obviously about one of our best players, if not our best player at the moment. So, it surprised me, to be honest. It surprised me because we're on obviously such a high at the moment, doing so well in the league, absolutely flying. And with all due respect to Oxford, with the players that we have and the quality that we have, the quality that Arteta started as well. We should have been absolutely flying right from the very off last night, and we didn't. But I suppose at the end of the day, all that matters is that we did turn things around. The players did eventually respond, and we won comfortably. Happy with the outcome, happy with the second half performance. And as we've already touched on, I think that the changes played a huge part in that. Just obviously happy that there wasn't an upset like last year, and we we've proceeded to the next round. But yeah, in terms of Sammy Lokonga, I'm concerned. I'm really concerned for him and his future at Arsenal, because we've seen a lot of him now. As Harry touched on, he's been here longer than some of the other lads in this team, and I haven't seen anything really that gives me hope for him, to play a crucial role in Arsenal's future moving forward. Look, he's still young, and I get that. There's still plenty of room for improvement for him to learn. And you think if anyone's going to get the best out of him, it will be a manager like Mikel Arteta. But you'd think that by now he's beginning to click. He's learned a lot already. He's developed as a footballer, and I'm struggling to see where that improvement is or has come so far. And look, I appreciate the fact he's not a regular in the team. He's obviously a rotational option for Arteta, and sometimes that can hold your development back. I understand that. But that we're talking about a young talent who we paid, I think, around £20 million for. And so far, I've not seen enough from him. And I think last night, if you're struggling against the League One opposition, that's concerning for me.
Yeah, look, Harry, I think I'll give you the final word on Lokonga, because Abby and Chris have both had their thoughts, and then we can round that topic off. He's come in to a team where he was always thought to be very much a prospect. Whether or not he was seen as the Thomas Partey long-term replacement or the Xhaka long-term replacement was never really specified. He's kind of played both roles and seemingly operated better, I suppose, when he's actually given someone like Partey behind him to give him that freedom. But in these games, and, I've had a couple of chats with people that maybe think I'm too harsh on him. And the kind of argument that I go back to is, can anybody name me kind of some real standout performances from him, say, in the last year? And I think back to the Villa game from this season that we won 2-1. I thought he was good in that game. But beyond that, I'm struggling, to come up with, off the top of my head, maybe it's just bad memory, but off the top of my head, I genuinely can't. I think he was okay against United, but he made a couple of really big mistakes, obviously, that cost us. So where's your head at with Lokonga? And is this the end kind of his story somewhat, or going towards the end? Or do you think maybe there is a loan option that might reopen the door for him later down the line, or give Arsenal more money in the future?
Yeah, I think, look, when we signed him, a lot of people raised eyebrows because they were saying, this is quite a bit of money for someone who, we're looking at as a bit of a future prospect, someone that isn't going to come into the team straight away. And he did come into the team a lot sooner. Mikel Arteta has alluded to that on numerous occasions. He came into the team a lot sooner than we'd have liked because we had injury problems. At the beginning, he looked really confident. He looked like he was brave in possession. He looked like he always wanted to break lines with his passing. He looked like he was happy to pick up the ball and carry it forward. And I can't remember if you were there with me, Tom, but there was a post-match press conference recently, maybe after the Bodo Glimt game. Well, no, it wasn't Bodo Glimt.
Where we were sitting at the front on the right-hand side.
Yeah. And I asked Mikel Arteta the question.
No, it was Bodo Glimt. It was definitely.
Was it?
Oh, it was Zurich. No. I think it was Zurich.
Zurich.
The last
it was
one.
Zurich.
Yeah,
I think it was Zurich. So I asked Mikel Arteta the question. I said to him, what did you make of Lokonga playing in that slightly more advanced midfield role? Because we'd always thought of him as the Thomas Partey, prototype, if you like. And Mikel Arteta said, look, when he came to the club, that was what we thought he was. But we've seen over time that, he might be better suited to playing in a slightly more advanced role. So I think what that does is it doesn't give you the sort of excuse to give him more time, but it kind of wipes the slate clean a little bit, in that what happened in the past happened in the past. The club have realized he's not that player and are now looking at him playing in a different role. The problem I think we've got is that he's not any of those players. He's not a 6 and he's not an 8. He is your old school 4-4-2 central midfielder. Bit of attacking, bit of defending. Wants to be in the middle of the park. Isn't a specialist in any one of those two areas. Now, people would say, well, that makes him a jack of all trades and a master of none. But I just think in this system, it probably isn't going to work, because I don't think he has the attacking prowess to get forward into those half spaces in the way Odegaard or Xhaka does. And I don't think he's as solid defensively as a Partey or can progress the ball like Partey can. I don't think he's an El Neni either, where he's just defensive. So I think his identity has been lost a little bit in this system, and I think that's a big problem for him. If I were Sambi Lokonga, I'd want to leave. And I have heard that Sambi Lokonga has asked to leave. I don't know if it's true.
Really?
I have.
That's strange because I'm not saying that what you've heard is wrong. I had chased up a line today, and I heard from someone that he still kind of wants to make it, but that a loan is something he's interested in.
Yeah, it could be on a loan. It could be, but that he wants to get out of this situation.
Yeah.
And he wants to go and play football. And I genuinely do believe that this is a really talented guy. I genuinely do believe that he's got a lot to offer, but he needs to play football. And right now, coming in and out of the side, and especially when you're coming into a very bang average side, if he's got Thomas Partey behind him, there's no guarantee he performs, but I'm sure he'd play at a higher level than with Mohamed El Neni behind him. That's just the truth of it. So I think he needs to go somewhere where he fits into the system a bit better. It's very important that the right loan deal is selected and not one of those where, after 3 months, you're looking at it and going, what was the point in this? It's got to be the right club, but he needs to go and play football, because I honestly believe that 70% of his problem right now is confidence and nothing else. Confidence, a bit of not fitting into the current system. That's what I think the issue is with Sambi Lokonga. And if you invest what we invested in him, I know people will say this day and age is not a lot of money. I would give him another chance. I wouldn't throw the towel in on him just yet, because he doesn't seem to have the attitude problems, for example, that Guendouzi had, or any of that nonsense to almost accelerate the process of kicking him out the door. I think you kind of need to give him a little bit longer. And I think the loan solution is the best solution. The problem is that Arsenal don't have the depth at this moment in time to facilitate that. Because if you let him go and we pick up a couple of injuries, you're going to end up having what happened last year. Remember when Maitland-Niles went and everybody was up in arms about it? Ainsley Maitland-Niles has gone on to achieve nothing. I covered his game at the weekend for Southampton. He started the game in midfield where he wants to play, and he was awful. He gave absolutely nothing to the team. So, we had to let him go. We had to move him on, whatever. The only reason that was an issue was because of the lack of depth that we have. And I fear now that Lokonga will be held back from actually going out and doing what he needs to, because we have a lack of depth, which isn't really his problem.
Abby, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, I was going to say, I can see him actually fitting quite well with Company and Burnley. I think it'll be a really nice fit. He's obviously known to Company, and we all know what Burnley is like. I don't want to be cliche or anything, but that whole kind of toughening somebody up. I know they're not that team anymore, but I mean, I've been watching Burnley. I've quite enjoyed watching them, and what they're doing. They've got a really nice balance. I know it's really quite. Well, I accidentally started watching them when they played Blackburn, and I know it's a bit of a derby for them. But what they were doing and how he's got them playing with that Burnley ethos, I suppose, behind them. Yeah, I think that would be it'd be nice to see him there for a loan. And then see what happens when he comes back. Because I agree with you, Harry. I think there's a player in there, but what kind of player? I don't know.
I think in the summer, a loan is win-win for Arsenal, because either, he goes away, he does okay, or he does well, comes back and can maybe claim a spot, or we've protected his value by giving him regular minutes so that we can move him on for either what we paid for him or slightly more, fingers crossed. Or alternatively, we get our answer, because if he does go on loan, like say Tavares has this season, Tavares done pretty well, at Marseille. I don't think he necessarily fits into the team of what we want to do, because he's playing a very different wing-back style role, really, with Marseille. But we get an answer with Tavares, and an answer that probably comes with a boosted price tag as well next summer, which is important.
This is what happens with transfers though sometimes, right? Sometimes they just don't work. And what you need to do is protect, as you mentioned, the value of that transfer. So Nuno Tavares, what did we pay for him? 7-8 million pounds. Yeah. If we got that back, there's no harm done. If we got 10 million, we've made a profit. If we got 12 million, we've made a profit. The point here is that we're not then going into that negotiation from a really bad position. Sambi Lokonga, even if you only got 10 million for him, it's still half of the initial investment that you made. So this is what Arsenal need to get better at. And what they've done in the past is allowed players to almost rot on the sidelines and become these very undesirable footballers that nobody wants to pay anything for. And then you can't shift them. So before Lokonga gets to that point, and I fear that point is very close, you have to make that move one way or the other. You either cut your losses and you let him go, or you loan him out to protect that value with a view to sort of recuperating as much of it as you can later down the line. That's what the club have been so bad at for years, and they need to improve on that.
Chris, did you want to have the final say on this topic?
Yeah, no, I was just going to add, I'm in agreement with Harry and what Abby was saying as well. I think there's a player in there. I think he's a talent. I think when he was at Anderlecht, company actually spoke to Arteta, or was supposed to have spoken to Arteta about just how highly rated he is and how talented he is, the potential that is on offer. And as Harry also touched on, when you're talking about the fee that we paid for him, it says a lot about the player and the potential to come out. So I agree. I think if we can sort out a loan for him this month, ideally, or in the summer, then that would be the next best thing for him. I agree. The depth is not great at the moment, and we need to improve that side of it as well in central midfield to sort of cope better without him if we were to loan him out, obviously. But I think that's got to be considered moving forward, a loan move. Or something that will make Lokonga happy, that will bring the best out of him, and that will obviously continue his development, because with the role he's had or has at Arsenal at the moment, it is holding him back, and we're not seeing the best from him at all.
We'll move down to I lost my voice there for a second. I had a frog in my throat, Chris. A Chris classic from the Arsenal way. We'll move on to the quick fire round about some individual players to get some quick words on individual performances. Harry, I want to start with you and Eddie Nketiah. That was his 7th goal in 11 starts now for Arsenal, which is nothing short than a very good return. And when he starts games, and gets into these positions, he's clinical. The way in which he took around the goalkeeper, yes, we can say it's a League One goalkeeper, sure, maybe a better goalkeeper makes better decisions, whatever. He rounded the keeper brilliantly, and he finished composed, with the little chip over the keeper as well for his second. If you get him into those positions, I think most people would back him to score. The issue has been, obviously, in some games, is getting him into those positions. So where is your head at with Eddie, and where are you at with considering we've got a North London derby next, then a game against United, and then an FA Cup tie against Man City? How is that going to flow for him?
I've been really happy with Eddie so far. I don't think you could have expected much more from him, based on the level of player that we know he is and the boots that he was filling. I don't think you could have asked or expected anything more from Eddie Nketiah. He's delivered goals, which we knew he would. I had countless debates with people who said that, Arsenal season was over because Gabriel Jesus was injured. And my comeback to that was always...
Name him, Harry. We know who you're talking about.
Yeah, we should, shouldn't we? But I've had countless debates with people about that. And I've always said to people that actually, as a goal scorer, as a finisher, Eddie Nketiah is as accomplished, if not more accomplished, than Gabriel Jesus. I would back Eddie Nketiah in a situation inside the penalty area to find the back of the net more than I would back Gabriel Jesus. The problem is that he doesn't give you the same level of build-up play. As hard as he works, he doesn't press as intelligently, in my opinion. He doesn't pop up into pockets of space as intelligently as Jesus does. And the other thing that Jesus is far and away better at is dribbling and carrying the ball into areas in and around the penalty area that absorb defenders in, and then being able to pop it off left and right to create space for Saka and Martinelli.
Are these coachable, though? Can he learn that? Or is it just natural ability, like Jesus is just naturally better? And we always say this is what Nketiah needs to do, but is it things that he can be coached to improve?
I think it's a bit of both. I think you can improve on it, and I think he has improved in some of those areas. If you look at the way he's been playing, even going back to those friendlies we played in Dubai during the World Cup, you could see that positionally he was playing the game differently. So obviously they've spent time trying to fine-tune that in order to cause as least disruption as possible to the team without Gabriel Jesus. But the dribbling thing, I think that's natural ability that Jesus has. That ability to not even think, to just have quick feet, to just do it all on instinct and to suck people in, I think is incredible. So we haven't lost out on goals. Eddie Nketiah scores more goals than Gabriel Jesus in terms of minutes played and all of that. But we've missed out on the build-up play. And what I've noticed, and I don't know if you agree, is that Saka and Martinelli get nowhere near as much joy now as they did when Jesus was in the team in certain games. They just feel
Yeah.
on the peripheries a little bit, and like they need to be a little bit more individual now than they were in the team when Jesus was playing, where it's more of a collective and it flows a bit better. So I think it's had a knock-on effect on the rest of the team and the build-up play, but that's because he's a different player, and I can't hold that against him, you know. So I have to look at what he's doing, the things that he's doing on the pitch, and I think he's ticking a lot of the boxes, not all of them, but as many as we can expect him to, and he's scoring goals, and the finishes last night were both excellent.
Absolutely. A player who maybe had a polarizing performance, Abby, was Fabio Vieira. He started kind of the first half frustratingly quiet. I remember when he gave the ball away within the first kind of 5 minutes and, nearly set Oxford off on a break. And then in the second half, he pops up with a brilliant free kick for El Neni's goal. And then, again, another excellent pass to lead to Eddie Nketiah's first goal in the game as well. The 2 assists, I think, probably do mask somewhat of an underwhelming display and probably a bit of a missed opportunity in terms of an overall performance. But I also think that there is something to be said when Harry was talking earlier about when you change 7 players in a team and you're playing with worse players around you than he was, say, when he had that really good game against Brentford with the starting lineup. There is something maybe to be said that when Xhaka came on and when Zinchenko came on, all of a sudden Vieira looked a lot more threatening and a lot more, just better in general.
Yeah. I think Vieira is one of those players that really suffers from the lack of first teamers. And when I say the lack of them, I mean 7 first teamers, because of the space that everybody else can create for him. He is obviously, we all know, we all say, yeah, he needs to hit the gym, he needs to be this, he needs to be that. There are plenty of players in this league, in all leagues, who are slight and who come across a little bit more convincing than what he can when he's on the ball. Okay. He gets shot down. It's coming across that he hasn't got the strength. I don't think it is that, to be perfectly honest. I think it's a space issue. We saw it against Brentford. I thought he was phenomenal, and we've seen glimpses of these performances where when he's got the space and he can move on the ball and he's got time to receive it. Those passes are they're magical. They're up there with the rest of them, with Odegaard, with Ozil, and all of that. I don't think Tierney and Tomiyasu really did us any favours yesterday with that idea of giving him space. And with Lokonga, I think it was just it was because of everybody else. I think when you swap Zinni out, when you swap Tierney out with Zinni, and you've got Xhaka in there as well, you've got a great section of that pitch then that has up their level, that are working to Vieira's strengths and benefiting his play. I think he was able to get those passes in that created the goals for that. I think he's a phenomenal player, and I trust in Arteta. I mean, Arteta, he speaks really, really highly of him.
Does, yeah.
Out of a lot of other people that he can speak highly of, he's got his money put on Vieira to do some fabulous things.
He might have to, because he did invest £34 million. I think there is maybe an element of he's willing it to work. A lot of money. The club, as I say, backed him in the summer. He came out of absolutely nowhere. He was on no one's lists, no one's radars. No one was sitting there making tactical breakdowns of this guy and thinking Arsenal should go and sign him. He wasn't on any sensible transfers on Tifo's YouTube channel. He came out of nowhere. He clearly was someone that the data had shown to be a good option for Arsenal. And I do think that that injury that he had in pre-season in particular was a real dampener for the start of his campaign and really didn't interrupt his flow into the season. And in mid-season, I was really impressed with him. I thought he was great against Lyon. I thought he had a slightly quieter game against Milan. But I liked what I was seeing from Vieira in those games. And I thought that, there is maybe some element of trying too hard from him at times because he wants to make it work. But actually, what you said about the vision, he has that pass. He has that Ozil or Odegaard style pass where they can just see something that no one else can see, and he can execute it a lot as well. The free kick yesterday, there was brilliant execution of exactly what he wanted from that. And again, with his assist for Nketiah. They did overshadow probably what was overall not his best performance, and he needs to give more. But absolutely, when Zinchenko, Xhaka came on, he actually played a lot more like Ødegaard did spatially when Xhaka was on the field. It definitely enabled him to do that. And I think that you're right to bring up Tomiyasu and Tierney in that, because I thought we just become so much more congested and condensed in the way we were playing with those. Saka and Martinelli were coming so deep to receive the ball, where usually they'd be playing off the last defender and playing in behind or playing the little triangles. They couldn't do that with those two there, because White's so progressive, Zinchenko's so progressive. Even Saliba, Saliba's so progressive, and perhaps we missed him, and Partey obviously speaks for himself. So, yeah, well summed up. Lastly, Chris, in a particular player I want to talk about before we finish the show on transfers, we saw the return of Emile Smith-Rowe, who was, I really liked what I saw when he came on the field. He looked. I saw someone say to me in my comment section this morning, he looked taller, and I kind of got that feeling. He looked taller. That's impossible, maybe micromillimeters, but he looked ready. He looked like, he was really buoyed by the excitement of coming back. He spoke to the journalist in the mix zone after the game and clearly was buzzing to be back involved in things as well. How big of a plus is he going to be, and what are you kind of expecting from him in these next 6 months?
I mean, his return is huge, and it couldn't come really at a more important time for the team, really, could it? You think about the games we've got coming up, the injuries we have to Jesus and to Reece Nelson as well. An ongoing topic, as you all know, this month is attacking reinforcements and bolstering the options for Arteta going forward. But the return of Emile Smith-Rowe will certainly ease those concerns to a certain extent. And I'm not sure about him looking taller, but I guess maybe just looking a bit stronger. Obviously, would have been doing a lot of fitness work over the last couple of months in the gym, and I'm sure you could see it in sort of some of the stages last night after he come on. He looked raring to go, looked eager to sort of hit the ground running, prove a point. Maybe a little bit rusty, but again, that's normal. You've just been out 3 months. You've undergone surgery. It's been a long process back, that can be expected. So, really happy, relieved that he's back. He can be a really, really important player for us. We know the qualities that he offers going forward, and the sort of versatility he can bring as well. I think we do see the best of him when he is on the left-hand side. But again, Arteta can rotate him. I think Arteta's even mentioned a few times about playing him as a centre forward. I mean, that just goes to show the qualities that he does possess in front of goal. And obviously, Harry was talking about Nketiah earlier, some of the things that he brings and the differences between him and Jesus. But then you've got another different option in Smith-Rowe, who offers lots of different qualities. Like I say, happy that he's back. Looking forward to seeing him in action a bit more over the coming weeks. And I think the biggest thing for me, apart from his return and seeing him back on the pitch, is just how crucial it will be in terms of just offering Arteta that extra option up front now, because we all know what the fixture schedule's like. We all know that the games that we've got coming up as well are absolutely crucial for us in the league. I'm sure he'll play a really, really important part for us.
Yeah, we are going to need him. The Europa League gets back underway in March. I think that's probably going to be on a bit of the back burner for Arteta, with it depending on where we are and if we're still leading the race in the title at that stage, or we're still in touching distance at that stage. Players like Smith-Rowe being able to give Martinelli, potentially giving Saka rests if we need to, is going to be important. So he is going to have a place in this squad, even with the potential signing of Mudryk, who of course plays on that left-hand side. And we've got Martinelli and then potentially Mudryk coming in as well. I think Smith-Rowe could offer something in that left 8 position. And I've, the more research and looking into how Smith-Rowe played when he was on the wide left area and the new spaces that Xhaka is occupying, they're very similar. So in theory, he really could offer us something if we wanted to go a little bit more offensive with a change in the second half of one of the games. If we're chasing a result or we need another goal, I think he could be really important for that. Let's end the show with our favourite topic in the world, transfers. Of course, there's 2 things that I want to cover, and I'm conscious of the time, so we're going to try and condense this down. We're going to kick off with the João Felix situation. Harry, of course, he was linked to us quite significantly. Arsenal were interested. They clearly did want the guy on their own terms, of course. And Chelsea have really come out of nowhere. You can never really trust them not to come some kind of transfer fiasco these days with the way they're run right now. But are you worried or frustrated or gutted that we missed out on him?
I think frustrated is probably the right word. Chelsea are like that school kid that copies your homework and then takes all the credit for it. That's literally what they are at the moment. They don't have a clue what they're doing in the transfer market. They just look at who other people are looking at, and then they try and gazump them financially, and then they end up sitting mid-table where they're sitting at the moment. They're really struggling and they're getting it all horribly wrong, which is nice to see, obviously. But I really wanted Joao Felix. I listened to your breakdown yesterday on my way home from the game with Alvaro Romeo. And I agreed with a lot of the things he was saying about the fact that Joao Felix was not necessarily going to be the guy that came in and, completely transformed the front line in a short period of time. But my thinking behind the loan deal was always kind of, can we make this a Martin Odegaard 2.0 situation?
Yeah.
Can we bring this guy in, embed him in, see what he's got, and if we like it, make it a permanent deal? Because he's very similar to Odegaard in that there was a lot of expectation on him early on in his career, and the environment around him is largely why he hasn't reached the heights that he's capable of. There's no question about the talent. So I kind of hoped that was going to be the case. The thing I'm struggling to get my head around is, why are people very quick to say that Joao Felix can't come in and have an impact, but sit there and say that actually spending 80+ million pounds on Mykhailo Mudryk, who's even less proven, who plays in a much worse league and has never played, in a particularly strong side by European standards, why are people so sure that he is the answer, but that Joao Felix isn't? Now, I'm not saying that Mudryk is a bad player, and I'd like us to sign Mudryk, right? But I do have concerns about the price, and I'm just struggling as to why the narrative around Joao Felix and Mykhailo Mudryk is so different when one is clearly way more proven than the other. So some people say they don't want Felix, it wasn't the right fit, and I understand that, and that's a fair opinion to have. But to totally dismiss his impact, or the impact that he could have, but at the same time build up the impact that an unproven kid that's played only in Ukraine is going to come and have, is weird to me. I just can't get my head around it.
Chris or Abby, do you have an answer to Harry? I do, but I'm curious as to whether either of you have one as well.
I mean, I'm sure Abby probably has one as well. I mean, but just to add to what Harry's saying, and you've probably seen some of the tweets I've been putting up over the last few days, and I watched Felix in action against Felix Barcelona.
Those ones.
Not quite. I was actually, you would have been able to take from them that I was in favour of us making a move for Felix, and as Harry said, part of me believed and was excited by the possibility of us bringing him in and then sort of turning his career around for the better. Like we saw with Martin Odegaard, giving him some confidence, giving him some freedom, being part of a young and exciting team that likes to attack, that likes to score goals, create opportunities. I really do believe under Mikel Arteta's management and guidance, Joao Felix would have been a really, really solid addition for us. So there's that part, and then the other part is looking at the numbers included in this loan that Chelsea are getting. I think it's £9 million low fee, if I'm correct. No option or obligation to make it permanent in the future. And they're covering his full wage package as well, which I assume is probably quite sizable. So
280 apparently.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way Arsenal would have gone anywhere near that. So I understand why we haven't. I completely understand it. But yeah, part of me does feel as if it is a bit of a shame, and I'm in total agreement with Harry when he says he doesn't understand. Some people were totally against Felix, but are all for Mudryk. I get it, and all of the points that Harry made about Mudryk's experience and sort of the leagues that he's been playing in, the team he's been part of. They're all valid, and don't quite add up to the people saying yes to Felix or saying no to Felix, sorry, and saying yes to Mudryk. I guess obviously they are two different players and two very different style of plays. We know that. Mudryk looks quite a strong player, quite physical. I mean, explosive pace from obviously the times I've watched him in the Champions League and the clips I've seen of him. Very, very, very quick, and potentially, if he was to join, could be one of the quickest players in the Premier League. So he has got that ability to beat the players and to cause lots of problems for the opposition. Whereas Felix, I think, obviously, again, quite pacey, maybe not as strong. And, he can sort of play as a centre forward as well. So two different players and in that aspect. Yeah, I agree with Harry. It's strange, the sort of favouritism, if you like, for Mudryk. And you talk about the £80 million price tag potentially. Obviously Arsenal are trying to get that down, get the best deal possible. But when we're talking about figures like that, it does bring some rather unfortunate flashbacks to that Nicola Pepe deal and the subsequent sort of story which has followed. So I'm desperate for us not to be in a position like that again. And obviously desperate if Mudryk was to come in to hit the ground running. That's what you need ultimately. When you pay that sort of money for a player, you need to see him perform right from the very off. And I'm quietly confident, based on what we've seen of Mudryk, the type of player that he is, that we will get that. But we'll have to wait and see.
And Abby, your thoughts on this Joao Felix Mudryk fiasco?
Yeah, it's the nightclub syndrome, isn't it? When you go to a nightclub, when we was younger, obviously, and single.
No one's judging.
When we go to
go, it's fine.
we go to a nightclub and you go out grafting, wouldn't you? And you graft a few people, but you put more effort into some people. But you guarantee the person that you put more effort into isn't the person that actually really, really wanted you. Okay, but you did a little bit of grafting on all sections. I mean, they all would have worked out in the end. However, the one that you put the most work in has gone over to Chelsea. So yeah, listen, I think Mudryk wants us more, and I think as diehard Arsenal fans, after being burnt by so many other teams stealing people from us and people coming to our club and not really like playing for the badge. We're seeing this Mudryk guy, this Mudryk fella, and he's our new guy, our new fresh shiny thing that is going to change our life, and he will. With that haircut, that guy is going to rock our world. I love a 90s boy band haircut, and that he's in. I'm all for him. However, I would have taken Felix as well. I'm not fussy, to be perfectly honest. Either or, both of them are fantastic on FIFA, Tom. So they're fine.
Yeah, that really
No, I'm joking. Listen, I actually think Felix would. I think he's screwed himself. Because I think he would have fitted our system a hell of a lot better than Chelsea. And I don't know, I'm not going to judge somebody. I don't know if it's dollars or whether it's playing time or what it is. But yeah, I think he's gone and made another poor choice. He made a poor choice picking that club in the first place, before Chelsea. And I'm not going to say it because I'm going to say it wrong. That's why I'm not saying the name.
Atletico Madrid. That's
it.
Atletico Madrid, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's done it again. Bless him. I feel sorry for him. But they won't buy him in 6 months' time because he'll be a flop and he can come to Arsenal. It'll be fantastic, and we'll get him for cheaper. Thanks, Chelsea.
Oh, it'd be quite a reach based upon if he's just on an extension as well to 2027. I wrote about it today. I think Chelsea have been completely swindled by this. I think they're being used beyond all measure. Simeone's going to move on. They've got Joao Felix now playing regularly in a team where he might get more minutes in a system that might suit the next manager that comes in at Atleti, and it fits him better. I think they're paying a ridiculous amount of money. So kind of my response to the original question, Harry, is that I think one of the main reasons is because Mudryk is a more immediate fit for Arsenal in terms of what he does on that left-hand side. As to people kind of, when you look at the comparison between two, I think when you look at the style of Mudryk and ignore kind of his proven or not proven elements for now, but just purely on the style, I think he fits into what Arsenal want on that left-hand side, which is just speed, the quick turn of pace, a ferocious shot as well, confidence, good energy, and especially for this season when we're probably going to be starting Martinelli most games, he's going to be able to come on at the end of games, be a bit of a killer for us, basically, and finish off games for us. I think with Joao Felix, the perception is a bit, in one sense, because he kind of had this huge rise at Benfica, signed for a huge amount of money, and it's not kind of worked out. There is some similarities to the Pepe situation, I think, in terms of not suiting the system of the club that he's gone to, and that's obviously the stock fall. But there is, with Joao Felix, this idea of spending, upwards of, it's 11 million euros, I think, and then however many wages it is per week, it's going to add up to something close to 16, 17 million euros probably for 6 months with no kind of future associated with it. And I think that the Chelsea deal has kind of changed the mindset for people around how they viewed it. Because I think before that, they would have viewed it like you did, as in the Ødegaard way of looking at it and going, if there's a future for him at Arsenal, it might be worth investing in the short term. Even if it means he doesn't adapt immediately, we might see a future beyond that. And I think that Arsenal would have been open to just doing a dry loan because they've seen the success of Ødegaard and being able to get him in, but it had to be on their financial terms and not these crazy ones that Atleti have put forward to Chelsea. Mudryk as well, being from another league that not many people watch makes him more of an unknown quantity. So just psychologically, people think that there's more scope because they know more about Joao Felix. They know what they're going to get from him. And in some cases, that might not be that he's not going to give you enough. But with Mudryk, because he's more unknown, there's more excitement around what he could bring without necessarily being the substance there to back it up immediately. So I think psychologically that might be why. Feel free to jump in response.
Yeah, I get all of that, and you make some really valid points. I just, again, it's not that I want to discredit Mudryk. It's that I just don't understand how someone who doesn't watch him, which most people that are commenting on him are coming from that position. I don't understand how you can be so excited about something you have no idea about. It's blind optimism. And we had that as well with Nicolas Pepe. And he was playing in a league that was much better, you would argue, that was much closer to home, that we knew a lot more about. I'm not saying that Mudryk will be a flop. I'm not saying that by any stretch of the imagination. I like the player. Based on what I've seen, he would be a good fit. But obviously, what I've seen is limited. And so I can't sit here with chest and say he's absolutely worth breaking the bank for. He's absolutely worth going and meeting Shakhtar Donetsk's demands. Like, I can't say that with any confidence at this moment because I'm being honest about it. And I know that a lot of people do their research, and I know you've had some great people on the show that have given you that insight, and obviously that plays into your opinion as well. But it's the people that are looking at it from a place of zero knowledge of the player, but are really sort of pushing for this deal, but we're also very quick to rubbish the idea of another one. That's where I'm struggling a little bit. But and also the thing is as well, like, we've got a really difficult run of games coming up, and the whole idea of the January window was, of course, it's to build for beyond. But the reason people felt that urgency was because we needed to do the deal in order to help us through a difficult period. And it feels like with this, because it's dragging on and because we're not at a point where we've reached an agreement, if it does happen, it's going to happen in the last week of the window. And you're going to get to that point, and then he's going to come in, and Emile Smith-Rowe's back as well. And will play in the same position ideally. That's where Emile Smith-Rowe was best last season, playing off the left. So now you've added a bit of depth in an area that you probably needed to add in the long term. But have you spent the whole window focusing on that, ignoring other areas? And is that now going to bite you in the arse? That's my worry, that we're so obsessed with this Mudryk deal that we're not active in trying to do other things that I think we need to do.
Abby?
Yeah, I think we have a situation where we potentially there is this one of the best players that we're going to see moving forward for a very, very long time, and I'm seeing an element of that kind of Manchester United, potentially not necessarily Man City, although they happen to get the best players. But it was never a case of Rodri's going to be the best senior, you'll see, and he's going to come to Man City. Oh, that's why we're going to get him. But we have a little bit of that. And I'm kind of hoping that what Arsenal have seen of him is maybe the how adaptable he can be. I know he plays off the left, and he is fantastic playing off the left. But we who'd have thought all of these other players, like Smith Rowe, for instance, would have been so exceptional playing off the left until Arteta came in. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I thought he was always, a number 10, going to go through the middle, be that creative central player. And he hasn't been. He's coming off of the left now. So potentially, I think Arsenal are seeing something else in him, and that's why we're going for him. And let's go. Shiny new toy syndrome, isn't it?
Yes, the new toy syndrome. The
other one broke, though. I do want the other one anyway. God.
As long as they're not broken like Kim Kallstrom, it's all good in my book.
Sure. Let me ask you this, Tom, then, right? Looking at the midfield that you saw last night, and we were talking about this in the game.
Do I have to?
How bad it was. Yeah. Look at that midfield now. With Emile Smith Rowe back, assuming he doesn't suffer any setbacks now. Reece Nelson not a million miles away. We were told at the time he was out for a couple of weeks. Gabriel Jesus isn't really a million miles away anymore either. Would you say that Mykhailo Mudryk is a bigger priority than adding another quality midfielder? Like if we lost the forward, I feel much more comfortable coping with that than coping with losing Thomas Partey or losing Granit Xhaka at this stage. So would you the problem when I say there's an argument that's not?
There is definitely an argument there. The problem I have with the argument is that I don't see the options in midfield in this window. That's the big stumbling block for me, is that I just don't see that. Mudryk is there now. You can get an amazing prospect and immediate impact player for me as well. I think he will bring something straight away for us. But in midfield, I think you're going to have to invest a significant amount of money that will stop you from investing in that special player in the forward line in this window. I think you're going to have to overpay for probably someone in the mid-20s. I mean, the immediate name that comes to my mind in the Granit Xhaka position in particular is Milinkovic-Savic. And then I look elsewhere and I'm thinking in the summer, Declan Rice is around. I know that he is divisive amongst people, but I genuinely look at him and go, that's a statement signing for Arsenal in the summer if we get the Champions League, to be the future of that number 6 role. He's not fashionable. He's English. I'm English. I'm not fashionable. It's the way that it goes. We're not fashionable people. But you can see from what I'm wearing right now. But in terms of it, like, that is a statement signing, I feel, for Arsenal there. I don't see this in the race for Jude Bellingham, so I kind of rule that one out. Milinkovic-Savic is the other midfielder. Whether or not that'd be possible is I'm not sure. Chris, I'll give you the final word and then we're going to wrap up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously divides people's opinions as well. Some don't think he'll be the right fit. Some absolutely love him. And that's Youri Tielemans, obviously set to become a free agent in the summer. And I think, if you have the opportunity to add a really exciting talent in someone like Mudryk, and then add, and a more established player in midfield with the Premier League quality and experience of Youri Tielemans for free, to me that's really, really good business. So we'll have to wait and see. Abby sort of touched on it a moment ago again with Mudryk. He's got a very, very strong weak foot. I say weak foot. It's not really weak fit to him, is it? It's sort of similar to Tomiyasu. Comfortable with both feet. So no doubt we'll see Mudryk playing off the right-hand side as well. I think it's just it's an exciting, time to be an Arsenal fan anyway. And then on top of, the links to Mudryk, it just sort of emphasises that feel-good factor around the club at the moment. And there's obviously a lot of clubs been looking at Mudryk. He is sort of, I think, Roberto De Zerbi, the Brighton head coach, said that he could go on to win the Ballon d'Or, and obviously it's a big statement to make, but De Zerbi's a very well-respected coach. He's got great knowledge of the game, and that could be another positive sort of sign that Mudryk has got what it takes to become a real success in the Premier League. So intriguing, exciting times. Obviously I think a lot can happen between now and the end of the month, and I suppose my final point, the way to end it, is that the majority of business that Mikel Arteta and Edu have conducted has been spot on, and it's moving in the right direction, that recruitment strategy. So I think we've got to trust them, haven't we?
I think that is the best way. That was how I was going to end it as well. So you've stolen the words from me, and well done, because it is the bottom dollar for me. Is that we are where we are because of what we've done in the market, and that gives me reason to trust what they do. It's been a really good discussion and chat this evening. I hope that you listeners have enjoyed it. Do drop a like on the video and subscribe if you're new, of course. Harry, thank you so much for your time. Tell people where they can find you, my friend.
Thank you very much, man. Always a pleasure. You can find me on the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast. You can find me on 90 Min, BBC Radio London, wherever I pop up from time to time. So thank you.
No, absolute pleasure. You can find him on Twitter as well, at Harry Simew. Really easy to find. Abby, thank you so much for your time. Good to see you again. Congratulations again, of course. And tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, just find me on Twitter, Abs the Right Way. Thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure. And can't wait for the weekend. I'll say that now, but the night before I won't be able to sleep, obviously.
Yes. Yeah. Genuinely my least favourite build-up of the entire season is the away North London derby. No, thank you, Abs. Top stuff. And lastly, thank you, Chris, for coming on. I say always a pleasure, even though it's the first time you've been able to jump on TGT, but it genuinely is always a pleasure, and it's great to see you and speak to you again. Tell people where they can find you, mate.
Thanks very much for having me on, Tom. Hopefully the first of many on here. People can, of course, find me on Twitter at @CDavison_AFC. And, of course, I'm continuing to write articles, produce content for football.london as well. Abby, I was able to put the thought of the North London derby to the back of my mind. So thanks for that. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. Pleasure to see you all. And, thanks once again for having me, TC.
No, my pleasure is all mine. Thank you to everybody joining us in the chat box. Again, apologies that we weren't able to take questions today. It's just been a really packed, heavy show of talking about transfers and gains. Once the transfer window is over and we're just focusing on the football, it's going to become much, much easier to take your questions. Of course, I do take them every single morning at 8 a.m. as well for plenty of time as well. So if you've got anything burning in your mind, either leave it in the comment section, I'll try and get to it as best I can, or just wait to the 8 a.m. show and I will tackle it then. You can follow myself at the Gooner Talk TV or at Tom Canton Media. And of course, as Chris said, the written work over at football.london. Plenty of stuff going out today on Joao Felix, on Mudryk, on Miguel Aziz as well. He's gone on loan to Wigan. We'll be talking more about that tomorrow morning as well. Lots to do and discuss. We will see you very, very soon. I hope you have a fantastic evening, and I'll see you again tomorrow. And as always, up the Arsenal.